Back at Arch Madness after the second quarterfinal on Friday, where the University of Illinois Chicago, the UIC Flames, took down Murray State 92-79. Second game were the winners over 90 points in Arch Madness, which is really unique. Mekhi Lowry led the Flames with 15 points. Javon Jackson led Murray State with 30. Mr. Dutler, what kind of analysis do we have for UIC and Murray?
Yeah, as we talked in the preview a little bit yesterday about officiating and what was going to happen with Fred King and if we're going to allow some physical post play. In this game, it did not occur. You had Jackson, he got his second foul with 6:51 left in the second half. Fred King, he got his second foul at the 11:06 mark. Both of those guys from Murray State getting two fouls early on in the half really led to some issues to close for Murray State in the second or in the first half. When Fred King went out with 11:06 in the first half, they were down 7. The halftime score UIC was down 18. And it was a huge run by UIC. Consistent movement, great defense all game long. It was a really solid performance, I thought, by UIC. Very aggressive on the offensive end. From a fan perspective, we're sitting in the arena. It was a little disappointing watching Murray State's effort, especially in the second half. It looked like it was a team that knew what the outcome was. In the game before, you just saw Belmont, your conference and your longtime rival, number one seed, get bounced. The opportunity is there to get the semifinal Saturday. And in my opinion, they just laid a complete egg in the second half and looked like they wanted to be back to Murray, Kentucky early on a Saturday morning. UIC shot 55% for the game. Murray shot 28%. And I think that says it right there.
I do too, and I think from a fan perspective, I would concur with you. I think, and this is not a phrase I use lightly watching basketball, college kids play basketball. It felt like they quit. The effort stopped. And I will say, Murray State outscored UIC in the second half by 5 to narrow the margin to 13. But this was a complete and dominating performance by UIC. And that sets up now a matchup between the 5 seed UIC Flames and the 9 seed Drake Bulldogs on semifinal Saturday. That game will tip off around 2:30 on CBS Sportsnet. For those that want to tune in and take a look, Drake has continued the magic down here in St. Louis, and they have really made the Enterprise Center, Knapp Center South. They have now won 11 straight Arch Madness games dating back 3 years ago. And Brian, talk a little bit about maybe some research you dug up on Drake before and after this 11-win streak that they're on.
Yeah, so if you take a look at the media guide, look right now with the conference tournament history, Drake has the most losses. They have 43 losses in Arch Madness. Going into this tournament, they were 32-43 all time. You take a look at the 9-game streak heading into the tournament, so you're looking at essentially a 24-43 tournament record before the last 3 conference tournament titles. Now, obviously, you had a couple more wins on there, but just speaks a lot about where Drake basketball has been over the last 40 years, but currently where it's going in the arrow that's up, laid by the foundation with Nico and Darren, and then also our coach over at Iowa, who's done a great job getting the arrow pointing back up in Des Moines. And it's good to see a little bit of resurgence with our main conference rival for Northern Iowa and have a competitive 2 programs in the state of Iowa. And it's good to see Drake have some success here again in Arch Madness.
So let's talk a little bit about maybe what we think that we might see today out of Drake and UIC. It'll be the 3rd game in 3 days for Drake. It'll just be the 2nd game for UIC. Drake has spread the floor. I think one of the things that you have mentioned a couple of times yesterday is that you really appreciated Coach Henderson's game plan against Belmont about spreading the floor, and it really made Belmont look like they were not interested at all in playing half-court defense, but they did a good job of being aggressive, taking the ball to the basket, and then knocking down shots.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a similar game plan for Drake against UIC, just purely be trying to slow down the pace and limit possessions. I think this is going to be a little bit more of a challenging matchup for Drake in this one, just with the athletes that UIC is going to throw on the floor. Very similar constructed teams. UIC is playing a little bit better on the offensive end, has some better shooters. I think they'll end up trying to speed up the pace, so we'll have a little bit of conflicting styles. But as we get into some of our other other previews today. You end up having 3 games yesterday. The first 3 games in the tournament all go over 90 points for the winner. We get 100 point on the board as well. Scoring, well, we've been talking about being a little bit of a challenge. The teams that won yesterday had no problems getting the ball in the hole. And Drake's going to have a spread out offense, attack the lane with some kickouts. Hopefully the outside shooting is there for them. But it's going to be an interesting matchup when it comes to tempo today.
Couple of things I took away from Drake yesterday. Clearly, Owen Larson has a phenomenal game. Played 36 minutes, scored 25 points. And then Jalen Quinn scored 31. He played 39 of the 40 minutes. He was 13 of 16 from the free throw line. And so really took the ball aggressively to the basket. I thought ended on balance and then was able to get up through contact. If Drake has a similar game plan today, I think that they will compete. I do agree with you that UIC, maybe despite being the 5 seed, maybe presents a different challenge for Drake today with waves of players that they can bring into the game. Drake's played with a short bench for most of their first 2 games, really off the bench yesterday. Jason Thomas played 25 minutes off the bench. Godberry added 19, but Exacte only 4 minutes, and Isaiah Carr only 7 minutes. So they're playing with a really short bench. This is their 3rd game in 3 days. And if we're going to make a prediction on today's show, we might give the nod to the UIC Flames to advance to the championship on Sunday and to play on CBS at 11 a.m. And hopefully our game goes long and we ruin the start of Michigan State later on in the day. All right, we're back for the evening session of Arch Madness here on the Dr. Bowser Basketball Podcast with Brian Dutler. So Valparaiso and Bradley, the 7 and the 2. Bradley came into the game 20-10, 13-7 in the Missouri Valley Conference overall. And Valparaiso coming fresh off a win on Thursday night. Boy, I'll tell you what, just tight from the opening tip. Tied at 31 at the half. The second half also 33 apiece, right, to go into overtime. One of the top performers for Valparaiso, I think that we have to mention, JT Pettigrew, had 24 points, 13 rebounds, and 9 assists. Just 1 assist short of a triple-double. Amet Janovic had 18 and 7, but Jaquan Johnson scored 18 points, 6 in double overtime, as Bradley knocked off the 7 seed to advance to semifinal Saturday today. Brian, talk to us a little bit about your analysis of the game.
Yeah, I think this one it was entertaining, it was exciting the entire time. Breaking this up into 3 different segments because I think they played 3 different games. The first half was 1 game, second half, and then overtime because there was three different things that occurred in every single one. In the first half, as Dr. Bowser said, it was tied at 31. Valpo came out, shot the ball really well, 45% from 2-point, 43% from 3. Only reason why they really were in the game because Bradley shot 40% from the field, but they were, I believe there was 2 of 9 in the first half from 3, which was 11%. Valpo was +6 on the boards. They only had 4 turnovers. Well, they were 6 of 11 from the foul line as well. There were some good things that Valpo did in the first half. It was very physical. There were no cheap baskets. Everything was very contested both ways at the hoop, and it was a little bit of slow start. No team had anybody in double figures. But I say that, but 8 Braves scored in the first half, and 6 Valpo guys scored in the first half. A lot of ball distribution in the first half. The second half, especially the last 5 minutes, the shooting was phenomenal in a late game situation. Bradley goes up by 3 with a 3-pointer, they hit a big 3-pointer with 2 minutes and 26 seconds left on the clock to go up by 6. The entire second half was played basically in a 5-point window, plus or minus for Bradley Valpo. Real close, real tight. Valpo hit 2 huge threes with under a minute to tie the game with 19.1 seconds left. Bradley had an opportunity to win the game at the buzzer, didn't execute, and we go to a tie game at 64. And the first overtime turned into a dribble drive contest going to the hoop, and every single time the whistle was going to be blown. It was basically a free throw shooting contest. Could have been played a little bit better, but considering what was at stake, it was a great way to end a college basketball game. Double OT had 73 points, and Bradley took control with foul shooting at the end of the game. As Dr. Bowser said, Pettigrew, 24, 13, and 9, and 48 of the 50 minutes played. Just an Iron Man out there. The other side of it is for Valpo, you had Brody Whitaker. He led Valpo in scoring. I think he had 25 points, and he was the one that was hitting the big threes at the end of regulation, and he hit one, I believe, in overtime as well. But great game overall. Made Bradley expend a lot more energy, I think, than they probably thought they were going to have to, which could play into a lot here in the semifinal Saturday.
Well, that concludes our update on the Bradley Braves taking down the Valparaiso Beacons 90-84 in double overtime in the first game of the evening session at Enterprise Center. We will come back and talk a little bit about the number 3 Illinois State Redbirds and the number 6 Northern Iowa Panthers back for the fourth quarterfinal of quarterfinal Friday at Arch Madness, where the number 3 Illinois State Redbirds take on the number 6 seed Northern Iowa Panthers. The Panthers, coming off a win on Thursday night against Evansville, enter the game at 20-12, 11-9 in the Missouri Valley Conference, and Illinois State came in at 20-11, 20-8, 12-8. And so I'll tell you what, I think everybody knows that we are both Northern Iowa fans, and we will try to be as objective as possible. But I will tell you what, I felt like UNI tonight did a wire-to-wire win. I think the game, even though it was a 22-point win for the Panthers, that game wasn't even that close. And I think Brian will talk a little bit about some stats that are a little eye-popping. To be honest with you, I thought UNI defended extremely well the entire game, maybe minus the first 4 minutes. The first 4 minutes, I think Illinois State got into a little bit of a groove. And then the final 36, UNI really put the clamps on. Panthers to take down the Redbirds. Our mantra yesterday of cats eat birds comes true, which is really great. UNI moves on to semifinal Saturday to take on Bradley, and we'll talk about maybe what that game looks like a little bit. But first, Brian, let's break down the Panthers and the Redbirds.
So, yeah, the UNI haven't had an 8-point lead at halftime. Ends up winning by 22. An interesting little fact there in the Dana Altman Invitational, which is known as Arch Madness. Coming into the game, he was the career leader in Arch Madness wins at 21. Coach Jake now has ascended to the throne there and has 22 career Arch Madness wins, which now matches up with his all-time lead in total conference games here in the Valley as well. A lot of shine on Leon Bond III. In this game, on the offensive side, he was so aggressive, taking the ball to the hole. Settled for a lot of jump shots in the game before on Thursday, but was very successful. I think he ended up having 19 points. A lot of those come in the lane. But more importantly, he drew the defensive assignment on Johnny Kinzinger. And Johnny got going in our barn a couple weeks ago. Leon Bond, I think what we've seen a little bit more here in Arch Madness on the defensive side for UNI is picking up at three-quarters court. And it's not necessarily a full-out hard defense the entire 75 feet, but there's a little bit more than just token pressure. Leon grabbed that assignment and ran with it. Johnny ended up only having 8 points, and I believe 4 of those 8 were from the foul line. I did a tremendous job. The unsung hero, in my estimation, for Northern Iowa was R.J. Taylor. He has been known this season to hit that elbow jumper and has been very effective in the amount of minutes he's gotten. He hit 2 massive three-point shots in the second half when we were struggling through some foul issues, trying to figure out who that next player was going to step up. And R.J. Taylor came in and played great defense, was just a mosquito, a pest out there on the defensive side. But the 2 3-point shots he made goes along with the 3 assists he had. Just great performance when Northern Iowa needed it due to the foul issues that UNI had throughout the course of the entire game. Illinois State came into the tournament as the number 1 leading rebounding team, barging in conference play. Northern Iowa beat them on the boards by 9. And led in that issue, or leading the team in rebounds, were the guards. And Trey Campbell had 6 rebounds, R.J. Taylor with another 3. So essentially, out of your point position, you had 9. That margin of 9 comes from those 2 players. And it was an overall great defensive effort across the board. The tone for me in this game was physicality. And the first play that it really came into play is Chase Walker had a breakaway dunk. And this was early, I believe, right before the first media timeout, or shortly right after. And Tristan Smith came up from behind, and he contested that foul, or he contested that breakaway layup, got a foul, bucket didn't go in, and Chase Walker missed both free throws. And that, I believe, set the tone for the rest of the game, is that Northern Iowa was not going to let Illinois State have anything cheap. And they defended that way. Not only Tristan, but the entire team defended that way with the physicality that their defense travels. It travels to St. Louis, and that's how they're going to win the game. Another thing on the defensive end is, as we're talking, Illinois State hit 2 3-pointers and a 2-pointer the first 3 minutes of 20 seconds of the game. So 8 of their 52 points came in 3 minutes and 20 seconds, the first 3:20. The remaining 38 minutes of the game, Northern Iowa held Illinois State to 28 points. held them to 44 points. And most of those came from the foul line. There's a huge foul line discrepancy in this game. And when we were talking in the arena, it was one of these things that when you take a look at the aggressive team versus the one that's playing a little bit on the softer side of things, usually the team that's the aggressive team gets the balance of the benefit of the doubt. The officiating did not necessarily match up with that. And I think that had a lot to do with Northern Iowa's aggressiveness on the defensive end. They had to call some fouls. But overall, the free throw discrepancy in the game was something that Northern Iowa had to overcome. They did. Talked about Chase Walker being a key in this game if Northern Iowa could hold their own against them. He had foul problems as well. Will Hornseth had foul problems. Schwieger fouls out for Northern Iowa. I think we had a couple other players for Northern Iowa that had 4 fouls as well. But overall, the defensive adjustments made on Kinzinger, on the glue guy for Skunkbert, who has killed us multiple times this season. He was held to 4 points in this game. He was limited touches. Kinzinger was limited touches. And it was Chase Walker was the only Redbird to have double figures, and he was 11 points on 2 of 7 shooting, 7 points coming from the foul line. So couldn't be more impressed with Northern Iowa's defensive intensity, physicality. Illinois State, I think, with the 2 wins that they had on us earlier, I thought coming into the game may have been a little confident that the same things were going to occur. But the fans at Illinois State continue to impress us, how they do not handle defeats very well. And just looking forward to a semifinal Saturday with Bradley versus Northern Iowa.
Absolutely. I will tell you, it was one of the most unique games that I've been a part of at Arch Madness, seeing a team that was up by routinely in the second half 18, 20 points, but it really felt the officiating was still favoring Illinois State. They scored 52 points, but 19 of those 52 came from the free throw line. And so UNI did a phenomenal job. They held Illinois State to 15 made field goals the entire game. In contrast, Northern Iowa had 29, so they almost doubled up the amount of field goals that they scored. And UNI did well at the free throw line. They shot 8 of 11, 73%, but they got to the free throw line 17 less times than the Redbirds. And we did see Illinois State have a couple of students escorted out about midway through the second half, and then after the game, some Redbird on Redbird crime, getting really frustrated with each other in the stands, ultimately ending up with a couple of Redbirds and bracelets from the local organization in blue, right? The St. Louis PD escorted a couple out. And so Redbird on Redbird crime. And that leads us to today. And the Panthers are going to take on Bradley. Over the course of the last few years, Coach Wardle has done a phenomenal job in Arch Madness, right? It feels it is Peoria South. Their fan base travels. They really have a lot of fun supporting the Braves. Their coach wears ruby red slippers. And so there's a little mystique to Bradley as well. And Brian, as we take a look forward to the 5 o'clock semifinal game today on semifinal Saturday, what kind of things do you see or foresee in the Panthers versus the Braves round 3?
From the offensive perspective from Northern Iowa, we have talked a little bit about the ball being stuck and offensive movement. And last evening, the Panthers had 29 made field goals, 21 were assisted on. In the Evansville game, Northern Iowa had 23 field goals made, and 16 of those were assisted on. So the flow on the offensive end has improved down here in St. Louis to where we were a few weeks ago. This is going to be a grinder game. I think the team that gets to 50 is going to win this game first. Whoever gets to 50 will win this game. Defensively, everybody knows everybody's stuff at this point in the season. And when you have Coach Wardle and you have Coach Jake going against each other, who's going to have the tactitional change to make a impact play, whether that's coming out of a timeout, coming out of an out-of-bounds play? Something in this game is going to trigger a run. It very well could come out of a media timeout. Bradley can play a lot of different ways. They're more than comfortable with the grinder kind of style. Yesterday, they scored 90 points in their win, even though it came in double overtime. They can put the ball in the hoop. It's going to be interesting to see what Northern Iowa's conditioning is heading in this game. One thing that helped a little bit is the double OT for Bradley last night, so they had to get 10 minutes extra on their legs. But this is the third game in 3 days. I think you're going to see that in the pace of play today. But Coach Jake, even though we get looked in at Northern Iowa's kind of a slow tempo team, you watch his demeanor on the sideline when that ball is in our hands. He wants that offense to move. And with the number of assists that we had on field goals, that ball keeps moving. Northern Iowa keeps attacking the basket. I think we're going to see some good things out of the Panthers today.
Boy, I'll tell you what, I hope you're right. Just taking a look at a couple of things that, by the way, yesterday, I think we were 0 for 4 on the over-under predictions. All 4 games went over, but history was on our side there. 67% of games at Arch Madness actually go the route of the under. So today, if we take a look at the UIC Drake game, the spread is UIC is a 5.5-point favorite, and the over-under total is at 140.5. And in the UNI game, what the experts in Vegas have put UNI as a 4.5-point favorite, and the over-under at 125.5. And I think Vegas is expecting a grinder as well. UNI and Bradley have played twice this year. UNI losing in Peoria by 6, 75-69, and winning in the McLeod Center 61-49. And UNI actually was tied in Peoria with Bradley. Let's see here, 68 apiece. And we're outscored 10-2 over the last 4.5 minutes of that basketball game. And so competitive right down to the wire, but UNI had a scoring drought and maybe at the worst time. And so I think these teams match up very well against each other. I agree with Brian. I think that it will be a grinder type of game, and I think it will be a nip and tuck kind of affair. And if you get down to the last media timeout and it's a close game, it's who can hit big shots in big shot situations and who can get stops when you need to get stops. And I think that at least the 2 folks on this podcast would actually relish an all-Iowa championship game on Sunday. And so maybe we'd love to see the Panthers and the Bulldogs on semifinal Saturday.
Just overall, we've got 2 Thursday teams. And that's the first time that has happened since the new format has kicked in. Went back a little bit into the Arch Madness record book this morning. Not since 2020 had we had so many top seeds get beat. When we were looking at Northern Iowa being a 6 seed, taking over the 3 seed Illinois State, that was 1 victory. You had Drake as the 9 seed, beating the 1 seed Belmont. And then the UIC, even in the 4-5 matchup, they wore the dark uniforms yesterday, even though the records were the same. They're the 5 seeds. Not since 2020 on have you had 3 of bigger boys head home. And so that was kind of interesting to take a look back on that. We talked a little bit about the scoring. The scoring was up yesterday. It was fun to see the ball go in the hole. All competitive games, except a little bit on the Murray UIC game. But just overall, it was a great Friday at Arch Madness. If we get a nice little Northern Iowa Drake finish, hopefully for final Sunday, we'd like to see a lot of Panther and Bulldog fans in the arena because that's what makes this experience the best.
We are looking forward to semifinal Saturday at the Enterprise Center for sure. The games tip off at 2:30 today. They are available on CBS Sports Network on television. And so enjoy your semifinal Saturday at Arch Madness. And the 2 folks on this podcast would say go Panthers and go Bulldogs. Have a great day, everybody. This has been the Dr. Bowser Basketball Podcast. I'm Chris Bowser for Brian Duttler. And we will talk to you soon, and we will talk more Valley basketball tomorrow.